Hi, and welcome back to another training video on Scuba Continuous Intelligence. In this training video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how Scuba thinks about your underlying data that's in the datasets you'll find or be able to query in the UI, and a little bit about how you can discover those things with our data tab or the data dictionary exploration tools inside of the UI. In other videos, I'll also discuss event properties and actor properties in very specific detail. So if you're looking for that, that will not be covered in this video. So starting off, Scuba Continuous Intelligence is a time series data warehouse. And so what that means is that we have two structured components that are required for every single data set, and one of them is timestamp. And so the reason why we really focus on time is because the most important behavioral questions, or the most important questions you can ask about your products or services, are always generally relative to time. For example, how many purchases did I have in the last day? Or how many purchases did I have in the last month? Or how many active users do I have on a month-to-month basis? Well, if you didn't have a timestamp, you could only answer questions like, how many purchases did I have in this data set? Or how many users are there in this data set, not specifically in the last month, day, or year. So everything is relative to time. And what that translates to is that every row or every event has a timestamp on it. The other component is the user ID, or at least a primary key. And so our data, or what we ingest, can be any sort of thing, whether that's a person, a machine, a device, an event happening in a supply chain that is performing the event that is happening at the row level. In this case, it's a user that's performing a search action. This could also be a machine that's sending or receiving some sort of information, and so on and so forth. So this user ID is how we contextualize who or what is doing certain things at a certain period of time. And the third component, which isn't required for us to store your data, but it also really helps with contextualizing what's happening at that time, is some sort of action or event column. And whatever you want to call it, whatever your column names, we do not care. We don't care about how you structure your schema or how you name things specifically. We only care about these two primary columns. And again, this action column is a great help to contextualizing the things that happen at a row level. And then as far as the remainder of the data, the remainder of the columns that add value to your actions or events that your users are performing at certain times, this can be anything and everything that the user wants. We don't have specific schema that things have to roll up in. You don't have to predefine metrics or segments of users or predefined sessions in order to be able to calculate and build those things in the UI. And it's flexible in such a way that you can add new columns, drop new columns as you wish. You can change the values that are in columns, and the platform will just import those things and they'll be available for you in the UI. So just looking at this row, for example, we have the column headers, and then we have the row level things that are happening. This is the event. So just by looking at the contextual data in this row, I can see that user A performed a search event at this timestamp, April 1st at 7:31, and that they're from the state of Texas, they have an Android device, their gender, and their age. And so this is the same for every single row. They'll have the same pieces of contextual information, and the more columns you have, the more descriptive you can be about those things that actually happen. And so the way in which you can explore this granularity of your data inside of the UI is in our data tab in the UI. So when you come from any other part of the product and you click on the data tab here, you'll notice that there's this event properties tab that it defaults to. So event properties provide you with a list or the dictionary of every single column that is living in the data set that you have selected up here up above. So if I just scroll up here, for example, and let me click on this action column, I can go ahead and see now what are all the columns or all the available action types that live under the action column. So here, if I'm looking at this and I have, let's say, thousands or millions of rows of data, in this sort of situation, I would need to let's say you're running SQL, you need to count distinct values of action to see what all the available action types are. Or you can, in an Excel table or CSV document, do a filter and see what all different types of actions there are. But in our event tab, it shows you every single unique value that lives under there, and it kind of runs a sample query. So here I can see that in this time period, there have been 2.4 million of this particular action type. And it's a good way to then explore everything, right? Like, let's see what device types our users are using and so on and so forth. And then you can go ahead and say, all right, now I know that we have a lot of users that are doing Android events. So that might be that's obviously our most popular platform. You can go ahead and then start building a query on device types that match Android and, understand your data better to do more effective analysis. So in the next few videos, I'm going to go through what event properties are and how you can actually build new definitions on top of your existing event properties, and then also how you can use actor properties to define things like segments of users. So for example, I have users performing my actions. Maybe I want specific users that fall into different groups. Maybe they're genders, and that also fall into different age ranges of those genders. Actor properties are a way that you can actually define those segments. You'll also notice in this tab as well that anytime you create a flow in our flow builder, that you can retrieve that saved flow definition from the flow tab here. So this is the list of every flow that's been defined against this data set. And then also you can save your measures from Explore. Let's say I wanted to save this here as my new measure. This will then appear in the measure tab, and you can then look at it and refine the definition even further. And then there's the option to toggle all of these things, because maybe you're searching for something like first event or something like that, and you don't know whether that's an actor or an event property. You can use this Alt tab to begin searching and exploring your data. So if you have any other questions or are interested in learning about other features in the product, please watch the rest of our videos or reach out to help@scuba.io. Thanks.